Hi, I'm Tessa Arcilia. In Choices and Chances, I use my own style of interviewing, honed through decades as an international news presenter and correspondent, to delve into a new topic each week and interview some of the most inspiring people in the world. Life is a series of choices, choices that give us chances to live our best lives. My goal is to turn the wisdom of people I talk to and lessons from my own experiences into ideas you can use. So if you'd like to be inspired by other stories, hit the subscribe button and join the community. It's so nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
So for people who don't know Carol, she's a very famous person in the Philippines, as in you were in show business full time back in the day. And I'll take people back to the peak of your career, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember when we were younger, we would go out and we would get chased by people with cameras. It was that kind of life, oh, that's Carol Banawa, and people would run after us. But then you went to the US, and it was a little bit abrupt when you left, and you retrained. So now you have a completely different career. Can you just take us back to that time and why you did that? It was a complete life change for you.
Um, where do I begin? I think because when we all met, we were in college, right? And at that time, when we started in college, my career wasn't really at its peak yet. I was very much focused with school because that was what my dad wanted, and showbiz was just, a hobby, pretty much. Um, and then, unfortunately, and you were there beside me when the tragedy hit our family, and I lost my brother, and my dad was hospitalized for quite a long time. And that was the time that I had to like really go. I decided on my own to go full time with showbiz. So as I was 18, we were 18, 17 years old at that time. And at that time, I was just a teenager, probably even just a kid, just starting to become a woman of my own, or if you may say so. Um, and I don't know, I just felt like I had to stop school and just focus on go full time with showbiz just so I can help the family with, finances. And um, I believe that God makes allows things to happen, and there's always a reason behind it. Because after that tragedy happened, and I went full time with showbiz, that's when my career started to peak up, and I started getting all the projects, and I started getting more recognized by, people in the industry, people, the fans, and I started having my following, which, like you mentioned earlier, it started from nothing to suddenly people know you, and people are like trying to get a photo of you just when you're like regularly while you're on the streets and all that. So it was surreal. But yeah, it one time in my life it did happen. And then I think everything happened so fast with during that time. I was 18, and then I worked full time, and like I said, my career just went on full speed. I was getting a lot of good breaks. And then once I reached 20, I think, I got burnt out. And um, I am, I'm grateful. I am still very grateful for everything, for all the projects that were given to me, because it helped us financially it helped my family financially. But yeah, like I said, I think I got burnt out. It was just too much was happening in my life. I did not have time. I mean, when I look back now, I did not have time to grieve. And then at the same time, there was so much pressure in the business of the typical, like, how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to act and all that. You were dealing with that. And then the pressures of being a young woman, a teenager becoming a young woman. And then of course I fell in love too, and who is my husband. I think that was a major uh, one of the major, I would say, how do I say it? Major factors that
Hmm.
made me decide to move. It gave me a reason to actually move and drop everything, because before I was just like, I, I knew I had to stay because I still had to help the family and I had to work. But when I found the reason to actually leave and try to get away from all the pressure that I was feeling at that moment, I took it and I left, even though my career was at its peak at that time. And another factor was, at that time there was a group of doctors that were offering to take care of my dad here in the US, which we also tried to talk with them and get my dad all situated. But then unfortunately that fell through. It didn't work out. But yeah, ever since then, so I was, what was I, 21 when I moved here in the US. I remember, do you remember we met we met up in a coffee shop, and we were talking about that, my decision. Do you remember that? We were talking about it because you were asking me if I was sure about what I wanted to do, and
Hmm.
but you weren't like telling me to, no, don't do it, or yeah, do it. You were just trying to hear what I had in mind and why I was doing it, and you obviously you were very supportive of what I wanted to do. But I remember that. I'm not gonna say what it was one of the coffee shops in front of our school.
Hmm. Okay.
And yeah, and then I left August of 2023. I mean 2023, that was just last year. August August of 2003. 2003. And it's all already been 20 years, imagine.
Now, so you're now training to be a nurse practitioner, which is such
Yeah.
another huge feat. As I told you earlier, I'm really proud that you made that shift. But do you miss the previous life in some ways? You were famous, you had, I think, good money, and it with that comes a lot of opportunities and a lot of, just good things. And you said it was surreal. And do you miss that sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be a hypocrite to say that I don't. It was a lifestyle that was definitely, um, I would say, especially, well, during my time, it was simpler during my time compared to how the artists in the Philippines are living now. I'm sure it's like way, way, way better than how it was during our time. During our time, I thought, we had it good, like you had sponsors for everything, your clothes, your skincare, your hair. Like the only thing you had to worry about was showing up for work and and doing your job. It was actually, it was like, it was a dream. I mean, it was. But then I think, like I said, I'm very grateful for that opportunity, for that kind of lifestyle, that life that I was able to experience at one point in my life. But I think when it was given to me, I feel like I guess I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know how to handle it because I was young. And I think also because there were a lot of things that also were happening um, in my personal life, my family life, And sometimes people ask me, do you regret leaving and all that? I don't regret leaving because I think and it made me the person that I am now. It has given me the life that I have now, my family, my children. I mean, I would not, change that for the world for anything. Um, but um, I mean, there will always be a time that I will miss that life. Hey, who doesn't want the freebies, right? All the good all the good things. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys, I would even take you guys with me, remember?
Yes, I remember that. And as someone who was very young at the time, and we would go to your shows, in the back, backstage, and I would see all these famous people. I'd go, oh wow, oh my God, that felt it was funny. It was a strange feeling. Yeah, and I remembered because there's also the live audience. It was such a different world, and then from that to being a nurse practitioner, and when you tell me about your stories, it I just can't get my head around how you did that, memorizing, studying, understanding while raising kids. I don't know how you did it. Why did you decide to become a nurse, first of all, then a nurse practitioner, and how do you do it all?
I don't know about how I did it. I think if you really want something and you set your mind to it, you can do it. I mean, there's always going to be a lot of challenges, especially pursuing a degree while you have kids or while you are also working. And because I, I, we were in college together, but I had to drop out. I did not finish college in the Philippines, so I started from the beginning here. Um, I guess I'm also fortunate, very fortunate that my husband is very supportive of me, and he was also one of the people who would always like really push me and remind me of what is your goal, like what is your plan. He would always like put me in that corner. What is your plan? And so it's like he's like my push whenever I'm like, oh, like I'm starting to procrastinate or like think that okay, I'll take a break first or whatever. Yeah, so he's been very supportive, and I'm very grateful because like right now I can just focus on finishing my NP degree while he works for the family.
Mhm.
But being in the medical field has always been something that I have been interested with. Growing up, I've always wanted to be a doctor, the typical dream of a kid. But my mom knew that, there was always a chance for me to work in the medical field because I still remember that. I think I was probably 6 or 7 years old in Batangas. And we were cleaning one weekend, and then my mom was standing on top of this chair that swings, that swings around. And she was trying to reach something high, trying to dust up there. And the chair swung, so she fell and she hit her head on the corner of a table. So her head started to bleed, and everyone was like, running away, getting all, they were all like hysterical about it. And I was the calmest one, and I was holding pressure on her head. And I even went with her all the way to the ER, and they were stitching her. And I was just there beside the doctor. And so the doctor was like, this kid, she's going to be in the medical field someday. And I'm my when we were in college before going to CRC, I actually applied for med school in UP,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and my pre-med was I believe I can't remember anymore. I think it was occupational therapy, and then I unfortunately my dad did not allow me to continue to pursue my degree there because it was too far from our house. So that's the reason why I did not go to UP to do med school, and then I ended up in CRC in UANP. But
Oh
I
wow.
can, I think that's why when I got here, I pursued what I've always wanted. I did not look at any other degree or course because I've always been interested with the medical field. But then I was already old, so I was thinking, I don't know if I will still have the patience to go through med school at this point because I started going back to school when I was what year did I go back to school here? I started I started taking I guess the first 2 years is like liberal arts, right? Like all the general subjects. I started probably around 2013, 2014, and then RN, which is you can do it. I'm not sure if it's the same there where you live, but there's an associate's degree level here. So it's 2 years. So I can be a registered nurse just by going through that program. And then once I am a working RN, I can finish my bachelor's degree. So
Hmm.
I actually went through every step. I started as a nurse aide and I became a licensed practitioner nurse. And then I became an RN. And then with a with associate's degree and bachelor's degree, and now I'm doing my nurse practitioner. So I feel like I've been studying my whole like the past 10 years of my life, more than because I became a CNA when I was in 2005. So I've been like studying, but
You're almost
I'm
done. You're
almost at the
almost at the
end.
finish line. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I, you know,
almost at the finish line.
one story I couldn't forget was the day you told me that you assisted in your first amputation. First amputation, and then you were so happy to hold whatever it was they amputated. I just thought, oh my God, but you are in the right field. So
Yep,
I'm really
I
excited for you.
am.
You're getting to the end
I
of it.
I know.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
yeah,
love
go ahead. What were you gonna
so
say?
like we're going back to what you're saying because that's me as an RN. I'm an OR nurse. So unfortunately, I'm not actively working as an OR nurse right now, although I am still a registered nurse because the schedule does not permit me to work that shift while I'm studying and then I have, a toddler to take care of. So I have to choose between what I would want to do. So but
Mhm.
yeah, I miss OR. I really love OR. OR was like, I guess I don't know why. I'm just that's the premonition of that
You're
doctor that
drawn.
I'm not scared of blood. I'm not scared of gooey ooey oozing and
Yeah,
stuff like that. No.
we're the opposite. But that's amazing. And I wanted to ask because you mentioned the tragedy, and we when you're when the accident happened, we were very, very young. You were very, very young, and you were forced to grow up. What did you learn from that life lesson? That was, death at a really early age. Like you had to deal with the death of your brother. Uh, what was that like? And what was the biggest lesson for you? What did it teach you about life?
What it taught me about life, I think one thing that I've always the phrase that I've learned and remembered when that tragedy happened to us, to our family, was carpe diem, seize the day. That stuck in my head. I don't know. I guess the movie is Dead Poet Society
Yeah.
and carpe diem and seize the day because you you really don't know when death is going to come to your life, may it be yours or your loved one. So it's very important to always live your life, not not like very, how do you say it, irresponsibly or very to the point that you just don't care and you're just living your life. But I mean, like in terms of your relationship with other people, like you don't know when it will be the last time that you're going to see that person or tell that person that you love them. So that point of view about life is what I learned about that tragedy and how important it is to really take time and make time for people, for your loved ones,
Yeah.
to say I love you, to show that you love someone, because that is the main lesson for me, because I took everything, don't take things for granted. That's
Mhm.
I finally understood what that meant, because like I said, you'll never know when it is the last time you're going to see that person, or because you just there's so many sometimes there are things that are left unsaid, and you think that you'll have another time on another day to be able to say that to that person, and but the thing is, you don't know if that will be the last time that you're gonna be with your family, with your children. So as much as possible, don't take anything for granted. um, Make sure that you make memories that will last forever, for especially for your
Mhm.
children, making them feel loved all the time. I think it was Maya Angelou that said, people won't remember you for the things that you said, or it's or something. I can't remember the exact word, but I know that she said that people will remember you by how you made them feel.
Yep.
So, so that concept, that idea of not taking things for granted, of making sure that if you love someone, you make sure that you show it, you make them feel it, because time is precious. Time is gold, and you cannot bring back time, you know.
And given that it took a lot of time to do study and raise a family, and was there ever a time when you were in the process of studying, and I know it was important to you because you were doing it for yourself, you wanted to achieve something for yourself and for your family, of course, but was there ever a time where you wanted to stop and just you think, is this even worth it?
Um, Sometimes I feel bad because sometimes I miss out on things, because especially when I was trying to finish my RN degree, there were so many readings, so many, and that was the beginning of like the bulk of it, like that they can actually understand what I'm doing, because when they're babies, they don't know what's happening, right? But as they were getting older, and they were seeing that I'm just always on my book or on the computer, I'm like studying, and I have to study. It's not one of those classes or topics that you can just, oh, I'll wing it, because you can't wing it. You really have to know the things that you need to understand or memorize. Because remember, I was telling you, because this time I'm dealing with life, right? So I
Mhm.
want to be able to say that I actually know what I'm doing, or know that that my patients can depend on me if ever a time comes that they need to. But yeah, I guess there are times though that I wish I wish I had spent more time with them, because then you just tend to give them things that would preoccupy them, so that they will not bother you, so that you can do what you need to do. But unfortunately, those things happen, and I guess I'm fortunate that I have good kids, and I'm
And
grateful
that's
that,
those are the choices that you make, right? And
yeah,
um, so apt for the title of this podcast. But yeah, the choices that you make in life, and you just have to um, make that decision and then move forward because it's going to be
yeah,
you. There's never a perfect choice, right?
yeah.
And
It's always about finding what works for you, for your family, for your situation. Like my choice. may not be suitable for you to use. Like if you're given the same situation or scenario, it might not be something that you can do,
Mhm.
and it goes for other people, and that's exactly it. You just do, you adapt to whatever your situation is, and you make the best of it, and you
Yeah.
you adjust, and hopefully you are like, especially if you have children, you were able to raise them well enough, and you were able to guide them well enough that they'd be able to adapt with you.
Yeah, and so many things I want to ask you. We'll get to the parenting bit, but first I wanted to ask you about what we were chatting about before we got everything to work. Um, the imposter syndrome. You sometimes still feel,
uh,
what am I doing? Am I, am I just faking it? Yeah.
I still
Do
get
you
that.
still feel that?
I
Yeah.
still do, because I think that's, I guess, being being in showbiz. I feel like I grew up in showbiz because I started when I was 9 years old. I had an album, but then that was cut short by my dad because my dad wanted me to go to school because school was priority. So that was cut short. And then I went back when I was 13, and I was there until I was 21. So my growing years was in showbiz. So I I identify myself as Carol Banawa. But then I wanted you guys to call me, well, no, you guys call me Carol, right? You guys call me Carol. But here in the US,
Yeah.
people who know me personally call me Claire.
There. Hmm.
My first name is Carol Claire, because I feel like when people call me Carol, that's the showbiz side. That's the showbiz Carol. And sometimes it still feels weird because, especially when I started working as a nurse or a CNA, some Filipinos would recognize me, especially when I just moved here, early on. They're like so in shock or confused why I was there. So, so some,
That would have been fun.
so sometimes it really catches me off guard because I'm very like, I don't care. I am happy with what I am doing. Like as a CNA, I remember I was a CNA, and CNAs are nurse aides. We take care of the patients like physically, and we give them baths, we clean them up.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we actually do. And then, so when I was doing that back in Arizona, I started in 2005 or 6 as a CNA. So I just moved 2003. So that was really fresh. Like people still knew me, like especially if they were watching, because I think at that time TFC, the Filipino channel, just started peaking up, because now it's like everyone has TFC, right?
Mhm.
But at that time, the people who had TFC, they're like in shock. Like there were times, there were night, because I was working the night shift on a rehab floor, and so I started my shift at 7 o'clock, and then like around between 10 and 12 midnight, that's like quiet time because patients are asleep. So most of the time, nurses from other floors would have the time to go to our unit, right? And sometimes I would see them like, I saw some of them like peeking and trying to find me or something like that. And then I'd be working with other nurses, American nurses, and they're like, "What? Why is everybody here? Who are they looking for?" And then
I've
fine,
heard.
and then finally, because I used to work with other Filipino nurses, and then they would explain why, because I was there. Carol is like this. She's like a famous singer in the Philippines. La 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 la. So they're gonna look at me and they're like, "Girl, so what are you doing here?"
That
They're
is
like,
so funny.
they're like, "So
Oh.
what are you doing here? Why are you here?" I'm like, "I'm here." And I'm like,
And
how do you answer that? It's not like I have to explain
yeah,
my whole life story to them, but
but
but yeah, I
now, but
still get those.
you have a new identity though as a nurse practitioner. As you were telling me earlier, when you see patients, now you get to see patients. Do you go, huh, I
I
know what
know.
I'm doing?
Yeah. As long as I know, sometimes I think about it like once I become a licensed nurse practitioner, I'm not sure if I will be nervous or more relaxed once I have a Filipino patient because I don't I, I don't know if I'm gonna be more at home because okay, good. I have a Filipino patient. I can just talk to them freely, we can talk in Tagalog and all that. But then at the same time, what if they know me? Because some Filipinos don't recognize me because like
Mhm.
especially the younger ones because
Yeah,
they never caught me on TV anymore. So there's only that small percentage of people the same age as us that know me.
yeah.
So it's still weird because like sometimes I still get I don't know. That's why I keep telling you, like, I feel like sometimes I'm pretending. And then you also know I still do shows sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So when I do shows, I flip a switch and then I'm Carol Banawa again. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit stressful too for my part because, as a singer, you have to be practicing all the time because it's hard to just like turn it off and turn it back on because there's there's things that you have to do enable to for you to be able to maintain your voice, the stuff that you sing, and I don't do that. I don't vocalize. I don't It's bad, but I don't vocalize. I mean, I tend to practice like, okay, I have a show. I'm a good girl if I know I've been practicing for at least a month for that show.
Mhm.
But then that depends if time permits, right? But
TV, we all wear different hats, but you're also a military wife, and I think that's a not a lot of people will know what that's like, because your husband was in the military.
yeah, for 21
What
years.
was like? I mean, because they have to get deployed, and because it's a different, a very specific life. What was that
Uh-huh.
like, and what was the hardest bit about that, and the best bit, I suppose?
I guess obviously, and I'm sure all the military wives would agree with me. It was always hard whenever they're away, they're deployed. We've been lucky because he's only been deployed or away from me twice.
Hmm.
And those were hard times. Those were really hard times for us. And because you're also left at home. I've been lucky because there were times that when we were in Arizona and he was deployed, his mom was there. So, at least I had someone to help me because we had Chelsea at that time. And then when he got stationed in Korea, my mama was here with us, but I already had two kids at that time. So, but it was still hard, and I think it was also hard for the kids. But for the most part, we've been always together for the 21 years. So we're still very fortunate, and we weren't really moving a lot like other military families do.
Hmm.
Um, we've only moved twice. Well, no, I mean, um, from Arizona, we moved to Virginia, and then in
Hmm.
Virginia, we moved to different houses, but that's about it. We'd never really like went overseas or anything, unlike other
Were you
families.
worried about his safety though, ever?
Oh yeah, of course, especially when he was deployed in Iraq, because
Hmm.
that was scary times. That was like at the peak of everything, and
Hmm.
Chelsea was only 9 months old at that time, and he was even deployed during the holidays. So, and
Yeah.
he got home because Chelsea's birthday is January 17, and he got home, I believe, the day after her birthday. So he made it to the party. I made sure that the party was like when he was home. So he made it to the party, but it was hard for him because, coming from war and then,
You switched.
trying, yeah, which was hard, but we were glad and we were happy and grateful that he was home.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned Chelsea, she's my goddaughter. You know, being a parent, what is the biggest thing that it's taught you about yourself? And what did you learn about parenting that you only knew from experience, that you only learned from experience?
It requires a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Parenting requires a lot of patience. And it's funny because obviously you love your children. It's like it's you can't even explain how much you love them. You just love them that your heart almost feels like it's going to explode whenever you look at them. It's like it's funny because sometimes I catch myself, I'm just staring at them or when they're doing something and I'm about to cry already. It's because you're just watching them. But I think it's because of that love that you feel for them, you know? And
Yeah.
I know, or maybe I'm just really dramatic. When you become when you become a when you become a mother, you always cry very easily. But yeah, I think one thing that I've learned, and also I've learned about myself, is how patient I am. It has taught me to be patient. And I guess also to accept the fact that you can also learn from them. It takes a lot of setting your pride and ego aside, being humble enough to admit that you're wrong, you know, that you're not always right. I mean, I know that we know more than them because just because we have been through more than they have been through in life. But then sometimes, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's the innocence of how they think about things or the world. Sometimes you learn from them, you know, and sometimes you catch yourself, you realize that what they're saying actually makes sense, you know, and you don't make sense because because sometimes most of the time when you're not making sense as a parent, it's because you're at the heat of the moment and you're just angry and you're just, you know, saying things just because you're really angry. And then but the key is to always listen. You really have to listen, and you have to listen to each other. And I've learned to, like, not to, I mean, not, I don't always do it. I'm guilty still, but I've learned that sometimes you have to let your anger die down before you say anything, because most of the time when you're angry, you say things that you don't mean or say things that hurt them. And you know what? They're still kids, you know, they're still kids. And you are still the parent, and you have to accept the fact that there are things that you are saying that they might not be able to understand yet, and you cannot get mad at them for that, right? So yeah, so a lot of being a parent requires being having a huge amount of patience and
Mm.
the capacity to understand and to forgive, to admit mistakes, and for allowing your children to hear that you also make mistakes. You know, as a parent, you also make mistakes, and sometimes you're also wrong. Because when you're a parent, you're actually learning from each other because you're also a parent. You're learning to be a parent through them. You know, it's not like you were born as a parent, right? And again, there are choices, or there are choices in parenting or choices in what you do with your kids that don't work, that does not necessarily work with other people or other parent and child, right? So yeah, finding whatever works for your family.
Did you also have to make an adjustment? Because we come from a culture that's, you know, there's a certain parenting style that can be attributed to the culture and also the generation where our parents grew up. And so, do you find yourself, are you a different kind of parent to our parents? And also culturally, did you have to adjust because you're in a different country? There's, you know, there are different things around your children that did not exist for us before. So, did you find that you had to adjust from that point of view?
I definitely had to adjust, but not to the point that I'm bending my views and beliefs. Like I still, especially now, I have a teenager. Chelsea's a teenager, so teenagers are a whole different ball game. It's it's like yeah, but you're right. We, our parents, and we were raised in a generation and a culture that is totally different from the generation and the culture that they grew up in. So I had to make my, well, at least my husband and I realized that we had to adjust some of our views. We had to we had to find a compromise because if we forced what we believed or how we grew up, how we were raised, if we forced it and we reinforced it to how we raised them, I don't think we're ever gonna be, where I'm gonna be raising someone who will always probably be mad at me or rebel at me. Because you know how we were raised in the Philippines. We come from a very conservative culture. Although you and I both know that we also have done our own stuff. And that always comes back to me. I always think of that, like whenever I'm starting to get mad at my kids of what they've done, and then I think of and then I remember what I've done. I'm like, who am I to get who am I to get mad at them? I know what I did too, but at the same time, that's me understanding the why to what they've done. But then I'm not a kid anymore. I'm their parent, so I still have to reinforce the discipline and establish the what's wrong, what's right, because that's your job now as a parent. But it's just funny because it reminds you of the things that you've done when you were young, and you're like, oh my goodness, they're going through it.
I remember, I won't tell the story, but I remember a flat tire was involved. So, I've never been so scared in my life,
I
but yes.
I will never
Oh
forget
my God.
that. And
Yeah.
all
So,
all all I can say is Kaloy, thank you.
yeah. So, inside joke there, guys. But yes, so the point you're making is we all do things in our youth.
Uh-huh.
And so, when you're raising teenagers, you have to remember you also did those
You
things.
you were young once, yeah. You were young once. So,
I'm gonna put you on the spot again. I know it being my friend, this has happened a few times when someone would go, "Can you sing something for us? Can you?
oh my goodness, what am I gonna
Just a
sing?
little bit.
Am I gonna sing a Tagalog song or an English
Anything
song?
you want."
I guess I'll just sing my Tagalog song, the one that people still know. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Iingatan ka, aalagaan ka. Sa puso ko, ikaw ang pag-asa. Sa ating mundo, may gagabay sa'yo. Ang alay ko'y itong pagmamahal ko. Eh,
That's so nice. You'll have to. How do you translate that?
I
It's
don't know.
giving
It's
love to
it's my
someone, isn't it?
it's the song. It's my song for mothers. It's a song for your mother, and it's pretty much talking about you're talking to your mother. The song is talking to the singer is talking to her mother and telling her that I will take care of you. Come on, help me out here. Yeah, I will take care of you. Um, I will.
I'll always be by your side.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty much the daughter telling the mother that now it's my
uh,
turn to take care of
to
you.
support you. Yeah.
Yeah, because of everything that you have done for me, now it's my turn to take care of you. Pretty much, that's the
Do you write
idea
your own
of it.
lyrics? Do you do
No,
that? Do you write your own song?
that song, I did not write that song. I was only able to write two songs, really, two or three, I can't remember, two or three songs, but most of the songs that I did were written by other songwriters. Unfortunately, I do not have that. I do not have the Taylor Swift gift of being a very, very good songwriter that I can just do. I wish I did, because that would have been really nice to be able to write your own songs all the time, whenever you want to, right?
I just remembered something. You auditioned for American Idol, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did. I was so nervous, and I was, again, that was like an awkward moment because that was 2005 and I moved here 2003, right? So it felt weird because coming from the business in the Philippines and then auditioning and starting again here and then getting rejected. It was like, oh,
But you got quite far, didn't you?
yeah, I got to the final round because there's three or four rounds before you actually get to the round where Simon and Paula and,
Hmm.
oh my goodness, I forgot the other judge's name. I'm sorry. Yeah, before you get to the Simon
To meet
Cowell
them,
round.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But unfortunately they said I am not passing that round because I sound too sweet.
Too sweet. Oh no.
So
Ah,
after that
okay.
I refuse to be sweet. No.
I learned my lesson.
I learned my lesson from then on. I stopped
Ah,
being sweet. No. Yeah, but you know, it was obviously it was like imagine coming from the Philippines, being at the peak of your career and then trying it here. You think you're all that and then you get rejected. It was like a slap in the face reality check for me like you're not that good.
was that devastating for you? Was that a real blow?
Yeah, it was because for the longest time, you know, like people would always be praising you and telling you you're good and all that. And then suddenly here you are again, you're like, you're not good enough, you know. Sorry. I'm like, okay. But it was good.
Yeah, what do you tell your children when that happens to them, when they get rejected and when they feel that? Because you went through
Oh,
that.
I actually that's one of the things that I use with my kids. I remember I also have one experience that I will never forget. Well, there's a lot actually, because I represented the Philippines for in an Asian music festival which was staged in the Philippines. Were you still there at that time?
I think I remember this. Yeah, I remember this.
Which was staged in the Philippines, and all the other Asian countries went there. And you know, to do that in the Philippines, you had the whole Philippines rooting for you and watching. You had the most audience in the audience, right? And then I lost. I did not even place at all. So that was like one of the most devastating. I felt so embarrassed. I felt so discouraged, you know. But then those things help you make you stronger, and it 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 and at the same time it's also a humbling experience, you know. It reminds you that, you know, to not get things to your head that you're all that, you know. It always grounds you when you have experiences like that. And I believe that's God's way of creating balance in your life. You have those experiences that you feel defeat or you feel rejection, because then you learn to appreciate your your achievements, the stuff that you actually excel in, or appreciate the people who appreciate you, who thinks that you are doing something that is worthwhile. I don't know. I think that's something that is part of life that we all need to experience to appreciate the good. What I told you is me now. Now that I have learned from that and I am older and I can look back and actually look back at the things that I've experienced in my life and actually understand somehow the why on things happening. I mean, you know, there are things in our lives that happen that we will never really understand, or we will never really know, not understand, but we will never really know the real reason why things happen in our lives. But then, because of all the things that happen continue to happen in your life, may it be good or bad, then you learn to understand why that needed to happen in your life, so that I mean, I guess that's something that you can tell yourself that you have learned. But when I was younger, no, I was devastated, of course. You're young and you have that big responsibility to represent the country, and then you lose. That's definitely something that, really, I wouldn't say broke me, but it definitely discouraged me for a while. But then, you have people around you who support you and make you feel that it's okay. It's okay sometimes.
Are you better with rejection now? You're okay, you're better with it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I better in the sense that I know how to handle it. Of course, I'd be a hypocrite if I say that when I get rejected, I'm not affected at all, you know. Of course, you still get affected, but I guess I know how to handle it now compared to when I was younger. So,
Mhm. Well, thank you, Carol, and really appreciate your time and all the insight and sharing bits of your life that I don't know that maybe are not so public right now. So thank you.
yes, you're welcome.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating so others can find the podcast. Thank you for your company and see you next time.